welcome to this week's edition of Shaynel's 3 Cents. I'm the founder and executive director of a nonprofit organization entitled Our Blended Families. And the purpose of what we do is provide information and resources to parents who raise children within two separate households. Before we get started, as always, I do my nice little introduction to give you all of my 3 cents to get started on something that was interesting to me this week, something that either I saw on social media, some conversation or some questions that were emailed to me by the general public, and or some conversations that some folks within my network we discussed before we come on. And so this week what I wanted to address was a couple of questions that I had about people that ask me why it is that I do what I do. And so I'm obviously happy to share that information with you about how I got started doing Our Blended Families. Aside from what I do for OBF, because all of my information, everything that I do is extremely transparent, that's also a blessing and a curse. But if you're able to look at the bio on my website, and or if you follow me on Facebook, or if you follow us on Instagram or LinkedIn or on our Twitter accounts, you'll see some of the background information that I provided. But specifically, people are inquiring why it is that as a woman, why am I so involved in fatherhood programs? And so I thought that was pretty interesting because on one hand, I would get feedback from women that say, well, you're a woman, you should be supporting us, you shouldn't be helping dads. And then on the other hand, I get feedback from fathers that are saying, well, you're a woman, it's not your place to help us dads. You have to make sure you let us do our own thing. And while I'm capable and very happy to hear insight from both my female population as well as my male population, it's truly my goal to make sure that I present you with the information and the answers that you deserve for why it is that I'm happy to do what I do. So the basic reasoning is simple. One, I'd like to say that it's not your business, but I wouldn't say that, of course, but I'll provide you with my 3 cents about that. But it's important for me to support fathers because when I support fathers, I support mothers. The two are uniquely intertwined. You cannot help fathers without helping mothers, and you cannot help mothers without helping fathers. And so for those of you that are unaware of that, I invite you to, again, go to my website, obforyou.org, or check out some of the resources on our page. As a community, it is our responsibility to help one another. And children are only here because of relations with the mother and the father. And so you cannot help one without making sure you're looking at what services are available to assist fathers and or what services are available to assist mothers. For those of you that are aware, we just celebrated Women's International Day yesterday, Women's International Day, which was yesterday. And of course, March is Women's History Month as in a whole. But there are so many programs, and this was actually born out of a deficit of programs for women back in the early 50s and 60s. But there's so many programs out there that help mothers to make sure that they have the resources necessary to assist in raising their children, resources necessary to assist in making sure that their children are healthy and they have healthy food. They have options for shelter. They have options for clothing. There are educational venues. There are entrepreneurship venues for women. And those programs absolutely need to continue. Now, on the opposite spectrum of that, we have to be mindful that we don't want to forget our fathers. One, because our fathers are men, and men are stubborn, and they don't often take help from us. But on the second option on that, when you look at the other spectrum, a lot of men don't have resources if they're a single dad. Husbands are very blessed to have wives, family members that are able to pitch in and chime in on, hey, bro, this is what you need to do, or hey, I got your back. But if you're a single dad because you're widowed, you're divorced, you were never married, there are very few resources for fathers. And I'm fortunate to live in the DMV to where there are a lot of unique organizations, nonprofits, some for-profit, and also small businesses to support the efforts and the needs of our fathers. And again, as a woman, I understand that a lot of what I went through as a non-custodial parent, because I was very blessed and my children were very fortunate to have a dad and a stepmom that were able to take care of them, I ended up being a non-custodial parent. So a lot of the things that I went through with the court systems, things that I went through with the government based upon was a non-custodial parent, this is what you're required to do. I found it very off-putting But I also found that, if I'm going through this as a woman, and there aren't that many women that are non-custodial parents. I think the statistics show from 2016, the statistics show that it's actually a little less than 17% of women that are non-custodial parents. It brought insight into how we need to help dads and give them the support and the encouragement that they need to be more involved in our children's lives, to develop better relationship with the mothers, and to make sure that they're able to reach out and create a community for support. I'm very grateful that my stepbrother is watching. Hi, Deontay. And he's actually a non-custodial parent to some beautiful children. He's very involved in their lives. I'm getting ready to unfollow him on Instagram, because every time I see a picture, if it's not his awesome face when a selfie, it's a picture of him and the kids at their rehearsals, at their practices, being involved in all of their school activities, whether it's sports and or just academic issues with the kids being on the honor roll. And so it's a real blessing to have a dad that's not only involved in the kid's life, but because he has that support system to help him do so. So again, when I do what I do on behalf of OBF or some of the other organizations that I assist in, it's not only to help our fathers, but when we help fathers, we empower our mothers to do and pursue their goals. And so again, I want to say thank you to those people that have asked those questions. Hopefully my response has given you a bit more insight about how we can move our society forward by uniting as a family and rethinking our village. And if you're not happy with that, again, you might not like it, but at least you heard it. So again, hopefully we'll move forward in the conversation. Maybe I'll see you at some of our events. But the goal is to make sure that we recognize that it takes all of us working together. It takes a support system encouraging moms. It takes a support system encouraging dads to make sure that our kids can grow up being the best that they can be, and that they have a very strong emotional health outlook for what's going on in their lives, because there's too much out there that they have problems with. And with that, we're going to go to a break. We'll look forward to seeing you when we come back to speak with my first guest. Thank you so much.
Mind-blowing decisions causes head-on collision. Mind-blowing decisions causes head-on collision. So I thought to myself, I'd give plenty time to all these decisions lying in my mind. Holding hands or put my arms around her waist. Neither one of these two will I try and face. Taking my time to work the problem out, yet trying to convince her that there is no need for doubt. Decision causes head-on collision. Mind-blowing decision causes head-on collision. So I tell myself again to think deep within, and remember when we first met we were only friends. Throw a kiss or try to taste her tender lips. Will these be the factors that will make our life a trip? But just in case things don't settle well with her, I'll say that I'm sorry and keep hoping for the best. Decision causes head-on collision. Mind-blowing decisions causes head-on collision. Must decide how to go. Is she mine? I want to know. So don't think too long. Decide how to go. Decision I want to know. Causes head-on collision. Must decide how to go. Decision I want to know.
Okay, welcome welcome back to this week's episode of Shaynel's 3 Cents. I'm here with my guest for the day, the awesome, the fabulous Mr. All Over the Place, Mr. David Grogan.
All over the place. I like that. Hashtag he's everywhere. He's everywhere.
Hey, and he don't need a slogan.
He don't need a slogan. Absolutely.
But David Grogan is here primarily because he actually sits on our board of directors for Our Blended Families. And he's also not only a good friend, but he's also very involved in our community. He's also a member of our DMV Fatherhood Collaborative. And he's very involved in neighborhood programs, particularly sitting on the alumni board of Bowie State. Shout out to Bowie State University.
Yes, you.
My niece go to Bowie. She GPA, Dean's List, all that good stuff. And he's also involved in some other awkward, wayward community event, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. The primary reason for why we invited him, not only to show our support from his programs and get some insight, but David, one of the things that I've always said about you and the work that you've done is your consistency in being a father and recognizing the support and the needed support for fatherhood programs.
Yes.
Can you tell us how and why you got involved in these fatherhood programs?
Yeah, well, I'm a proud father. Oddly enough, my daughter, she's 19 years old now, and she's home for spring break. She's a freshman in college. And she's my only child. And I tell you, raising a girl, it's been an eye-opener. Just looking into a girl's world, I tell people all the time, a lot of men have difficulties with their egos, which clouds their judgment. And it's like the ego is like a blinder on your lens. You don't see the world when you're clouded by ego. See, I've never been clouded by ego, so I was open to learning about a girl's world, which I thought is fascinating. I still see it being fascinating. And as you know, I have a very close relationship with my daughter. I was there from the day she was born. I was sitting there, although I was getting dizzy, in the delivery room, and they had to have somebody sit beside me. Sir, you okay?
Aside from what they needed with her mom, that you needed some help.
I needed separate help, but I was there the minute she stepped on this earth, and I have been there ever since. I got involved in the fatherhood programs and different things like that, and fatherhood legislation and just fathers' rights, because I saw where, for whatever reason, in our country, and not certainly just our community, but in our country, there seems to be a lesser value, and I think it's a lesser value because I don't know that we necessarily understand the value of fatherhood. And for our girls, I knew as a heterosexual man the importance of girls and making sure that you pour into them. So I spent a lot of energy, will probably spend the rest of my life spending a lot of energy pouring into my daughter and making sure that she has the support inside out and what she needed, and always wanted to create great memories for her, because one of the things I learned early on, I'm not sure if boys are the same, but girls they live off their past a lot of times. And they live off of memories of their past. And I worked so hard to just try to create those great memories. And that's not necessarily always realistic. Obviously, her mother and I, things didn't work out with us, and we've been divorced since she was 2 years old. And in the process of split and living in different households, that sort of brought me to getting a greater understanding of how the court system works, how our legal system works, how custody issues work, legislation. I learned a lot by being hands-on involved in all those different aspects.
Now, is that here in Prince George's County, or is that another county?
That's in Prince George's County. Yeah, I got an opportunity to see firsthand, which was very disheartening, to see firsthand what happens when two parents don't see eye to eye, let's put it that way, and then ultimately you end up at a courthouse. And you end up in a place where you think that people are intelligent, you think that people have the best interests of a child, you think that people are fair, you think that people care. And anyone that's been in a courthouse, they will find out quickly that it's none of the above. It seems more of a business, unfortunately, at the expense of children. And that's how I got involved in being a voice for some that are voiceless. A lot of people don't have the God-given strength that I have to sort of fight these different things and learn And that's what I do. And I just follow my calling from God to make sure that we expose and we try to help, not necessarily about men. This is what I love about what you do. It's about blended families. Blended families, functional blended families equal success.
Absolutely.
Broken families, we have what we have.
Yeah. A couple weeks ago, I had Audra Petticourt on here. She's a family attorney. She practices in Prince George's County, Howard County, a few other locations in the state of Maryland. And she actually highlighted some of the problems within our court systems. And she mentioned that in her experience, Prince George's County was by far one of the most behind in the Times counties with regard to education and support and information for how the courts deal with these types of situations. Is that the same experience that you had when you were going through?
Very much so antiquated, but comfortably antiquated. Because what I have discovered is that because of the business side of it, people are desensitized. So it appears now it's more about feeding attorneys. How do we see, there's profit in dysfunction.
Absolutely, absolutely.
There's so much profit in dysfunction. That's why as we lobby for fair parenting legislation, it's hard for people to understand. To get common sense legislation passed is nearly impossible if there's profit. So there's profit in creating dysfunction. We can fix a lot of these problems if we care. But that's when we tap into the legislative aspect of it, where we have to have legislators who understand, legislators who've had real life experiences, who are willing to look at these issues and say, we can fix this. Why can't we create a system that works, a system that demonstrates that it cares? Because they do have them out there somewhere. I just think in some of the urban areas.
And those other 22 states that have shared parenting laws.
They have 22 states with shared parenting laws. Shared parenting seems like it's common sense. If two people make a child, why wouldn't both parents have access to that child unless another parent can demonstrate that custodial parent shouldn't have access or should have a certain amount of visitation rights? And I don't like the term visitation, because no parent should feel like they have to.
That they're visiting their children?
They're visiting their children.
Well, you're babysitting, I'm babysitting. You don't babysit your own children.
You don't babysit your own children.
That's going to be a no for us right there.
But this is something that has gone on for generations, and it's going to take folks like you, because it's going to take women. The truth be told, I just truly believe that. It's going to take women, more women like you, to stand up and say, this just isn't right. It's not about fighting for men. It's not about fighting for women. It's about fighting for what's right and fighting for equality to ultimately help children. That's the ultimate
Because
goal.
when we treat them wrong, they're going to do us in the next generation.
They're going to do us in. And we're seeing today the product of broken systems. When we look at violence and kids are emotionally explosive, our kids are angry. Their emotional needs aren't met. Their emotional needs aren't met at home. Then they go run to these systems, and then the systems beat them up even more. Fail them. It's just constant failure. At some point, we have to hope that we can help alert the next generation. And it starts with understanding. You should know who the judges are.
Absolutely.
You should know who your legislators are. You should know who your school board people are. You should know who your sheriff is. But unfortunately, because we don't know, we don't realize that we elect these people. When I go in the courtroom, I say, okay, I elected this person. Who elected? I sure didn't. Somebody elected these people who sit on that.
Or you didn't vote.
Or you didn't vote, so you elected them if you didn't vote.
That's true. That's true. And I can honestly say for a while, and this is me being in my whole local elections don't matter. I'm only concerned about what's going on in the federal government.
Yes.
And so I can honestly admit, and I can never run for office because I got way too many skeletons in my closet.
We all do. It's normal.
I can honestly say that it wasn't important for me at the time. One, because I had some other issues that I was dealing with, growing up, dealing with some mental health issues on my own.
Sure.
But it's important for us to know what's going on in our community, because when we talk about the health of our children, making sure that our kids have access to medical benefits, making sure that our kids have schools that are safe, making sure that we're giving our kids good food when we go to the grocery stores. People often say, well, I don't get involved in local politics and I don't care about politics, but we forget politics drive everything that we do. Your rent is high because you didn't realize that your lawmakers passed these taxes.
That's right.
You can't get a good interest rate on your car because you didn't realize what happened when they said, oh, we're only going to let these car people come in, and we're only going to let these financiers come and support these banks. These are the things that happen at your school because you didn't vote or you didn't pay attention that your school board passed these guidelines concerning what classes your kids can be involved in. So again, the importance of recognizing what's going on in your local government is definitely underrated, and it's about time for us to start stepping up.
We have to step up.
You mentioned knowing who your sheriff is.
That's right.
Is that important to you?
It is very, very important to me as your next Prince George's County Sheriff. As your next Prince George's County Sheriff, it is very important. We, in functional communities, everybody knows who the sheriff is because they elected him.
Well, plus,
or her.
We grew up saying that somebody shot the sheriff, so we should always be familiar with what's going on.
The sheriff, yeah, and that's every elected position. But I have, I brought this because I wanted to share it with you. I don't think you've ever seen it, but this is a coloring book for our children. Your sheriff is your friend. Your sheriff is your friend. And it's a coloring book, and throughout the coloring book, it teaches the children what the role of the sheriff is. And it shows them that the sheriff is your friend, because the sheriff and the law enforcement, police, are supposed to be your friends. Absolutely. I'm a relatively young man getting old, but I grew up with Officer Friendly.
We talked about that as well.
Whatever happened to Officer Friendly? So if we get back, see, this is a part, it's an education process that we're missing by design. At some point, somebody at the legislature made a decision that we're going to take civics out of these schools. We're going to take PE out of these schools. There's a reason for that. If we go through school and we learn absolutely nothing about civics, we learn absolutely nothing about government, when we become adults, at some point, we're too proud to admit we don't know. I'm fascinated to hear you say you recognize that you were dad. So was I. I didn't know anything about any of this until more recently. I haven't been in the political game that long. I'm relatively new. But now that I know, when you know better, you do better. Okay. And that's what we have to teach our children. You know better, you do better.
That's right. That's right. You mentioned that you're fairly new to the political game. Running for sheriff, what's your background and what qualifies you to be a candidate for sheriff?
Well, one, I'm from Prince George's County. I grew up here. I'm proud Prince Georgia. You know, one of the things they said back in the day, people kind of joke on it, gorgeous Prince Georgia. I still see gorgeous Prince Georgia.
Gorgeous Prince Georgia.
I'm proud to be Prince George's resident. I grew up in Oxon Hill. I grew up in Glass Manor. You know, I went to college in Prince George's County. I went to Bowie State. I'm currently the Bowie State Alumni Chapter President. But the fact that I grew up in a town that I now want to have a role to ensure the proper public safety and get back to teaching and law enforcement people being folks that people look up to. See, I'm a retired U.S. Marshal. And while I was a U.S. Marshal, I worked in D.C. for 25 years. I've been all over the world. I've traveled all over the world. I have visited schools all over the world. Sometimes people go out of the country, they want to see museums. Whenever the people at the embassy, the diplomats at the embassy would ask, what would you like to do while you're here? I always said I want to visit a school. So I have seen schools all over the world. I know what functional schools look like. See, my grandmother was an educator. My grandmother was a retired educator, so education has always been my passion, which is why I'm a member of the City of Bowie Education Committee. And I've been that, I think, going on 3 years. We've got our teacher appreciation coming up. I'm the chair of teacher appreciation.
Awesome.
Next week, we're going to be delivering cakes to all the schools to show our teachers how much we appreciate them. We got 21 schools and 20 or 21 schools in the City of Bowie alone. And we're going to make sure that we do, every year we share our teachers. But I want to be our sheriff. Number one, I'm the most qualified. I'm the most qualified person. There's not one candidate in this race that has any kind of corporate experience. You'll hear people talking about they were in Afghanistan, and I'm concerned. Okay, if you were in Afghanistan, what did you do? You know, I'm not sure what that got to do with, being a sheriff. You know, I just anyway.
You know how to use a gun.
You know how to use a gun. That concerns me. I want to make sure you know. But we throw these cliches out there that these talking points that sound good.
Okay, let me interrupt you really quickly. As I say, and I'll say continuously, even more so, my favorite 4-letter word starts with an F. And to hear you say that you're the most qualified, hopefully, and I'm sure I want you to elaborate, that's based on fact.
That's fact.
F-A-C-T.
Absolutely.
I don't care about opinions. We can always talk about opinions.
Absolutely.
You think this, you think that,
right.
but we want to talk about facts first. So
Absolutely.
going into, speaking of your record for, working in law enforcement
Yes.
As a retired marshal for 25 years, again, continue to elaborate on why you are the most qualified, because people need to understand it doesn't matter how you feel. As long as you have the facts first, then you can circle back on your opinions.
I'm most qualified because I have the most diverse experience. Out of my 25 years, 23 out of those 25 years, I was in a leadership or a management position. I have managed everything from prisoner operations. I used to be the supervisor of the Capital Area Fugitive Task Force. And what that is a group of law enforcement from every agency. We all come together as one to have a task force to go after some of the most, what society considers some of the most dangerous people on the planet. I supervised the Capital Area Task Force. I spent most of my career at the Witness Security Division, which is the Federal Witness Protection Program. Some of the things, obviously, I did with the Federal Witness Protection Program we can't talk about, but within that 15 years, there's so much experience doing things in that, executive protection. I've supervised just about every aspect of what the sheriff does, because the sheriff is the local arm of what the federal do at the marshals. The sheriff is responsible for the local courts. The marshals are responsible for the federal courts. And some of the functions are exactly the same. The sheriff is responsible for warrants. I supervise the Capital Area Fugitive Task Force, like I said. The sheriff is responsible for evictions. The sheriff is responsible for all court orders that come out of the courts. They are sort of the police of the courts. That's local level. At the federal level, it's the same thing. So I have that experience, but let me just speed up or back up. I'm also proud, like I said, proud United States Marine. I've served my country for 6 years. Hoorah! For 6 years. So I've done that. But we speed up, fast forward. Like I said, I retired back in 2013. Obviously, in 2018, I have corporate experience. I'm currently a project manager. I manage a project, a $75 million contract right now. I manage armed security officers right now. So I don't need to say, well, what I did 20 years ago. I can tell you what I did 20, 30 years ago. I can also tell you I'm doing right now. I'm managing a $75 million contract right now. Over 150 armed officers responsible for the security of FAA, Federal Aviation Agency, and the Department of Transportation. That encompasses a lot of different things. That's one of the things that set me apart from every single candidate in this race. I don't think not one of them have corporate experience. Most of their experience is government. Government is one world, not to marginalize government, but that's one world. To be an effective leader, the sheriff or any elected person, that role requires a wide range of different experience.
Absolutely.
Because you're an advocator for a particular agency. I'm also an advocate, as you know. I've advocated, I've presented cases pro se and successfully presented cases successfully in court. I've presented cases in front of the General Assembly. I've advocated. I've led. I've been leading something my entire life. So when we combine that all together, that's the reason why I say I'm the most qualified candidate.
Okay. I like that. And that goes on with that same platform. As I personally, because I live in Prince George's County, and looking at the list and doing an assessment, I'm like, well, I don't know this person. And fortunately, I'm blessed to live in an area where we can GTS everything. So I can take a look at, well, what is this person's background? What is this person's support? And unfortunately for us, we live in a society of I'm going to support my friends.
Yes.
Sometimes that is not what you know, it's who you know.
That's
things
right.
can kind of backfire on us.
We
And
have
so
to
I think
get away from that.
Absolutely. And so I think it's nice that you like your friends and you support them, but for such a position, any position, you running for the county executive, you running for a council seat, you're running for a delegate seat, you need to have someone in that position that is qualified first and or has a vast amount of experience and has a breadth and that can pull on their resources to gain such.
Absolutely.
So have you similarly surrounded yourself with a lot of folks that are able to support you in this area?
Yes, I have a wide range of support because I belong to a number of different organizations. Like I mentioned earlier, I am a proud Bowie State alumni chapter president, Bowie State 2000. I sit on the board of directors of Bowie State. And I started my law enforcement career while I was at Bowie State as a student. While I was at Bowie State, I worked for the Secret Service. Recruited my brother. He still works for the Secret Service 30 years later. He's a K-9 officer with 2 young boys, my nephews.
Okay.
And then at the same time, every other semester, I worked for the Department of Justice Marshal Service. And I was captain of the football team. I say that Bowie State has over 25,000 alumni. And I'm sure my alumni are looking forward to having one of their own elected as a sheriff.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it's important that, again, that's something that we keep in mind because this is a very important time for us, particularly 2018, because it's an election year for just about everything.
Yes.
So can you remind our viewers that are watching when the primaries are and some other events that you might be involved in where they can find you?
Yes, the primary is June the 26th. This year, June the 26th. Mark that date. Please take leave that day. Those of you who can take leave that day. Put the leave in now.
Okay.
Because we're going to need your help on Election Day. Election Day is very, very critical. We have 277 polls that we're going to have people there at all 277 polls, making sure those voters are not getting blindsided, making sure that what has happened in the past, our county is controlled by what they call a machine of people who don't live here. That again, there's big profit and abuse and neglect.
Most of them live in Montgomery County.
They're in Montgomery County, Calvert County, Anne Arundel County, but they have a vested interest in Prince George's County because they just assume that we don't pay attention so we can make all kind of money with those folks there. So we got to be at the polls, and we've got to make sure that we get community people elected, people from our community. And the most important thing you said, people that are experienced. You have to have, because the reason why oftentimes they will put folk that look like us in positions that are inexperienced, there's a reason for it. Because they can control them. And then, so they're going to identify somebody totally inexperienced. Why? Because they can take advantage of them.
Mimicking what's going on in the federal government.
You were reading my mind. Oh my goodness, you were reading. I was going to say, make no mistake about it. I'm not going to speak for no other agency, but I can tell you emphatically, getting promoted beyond in a senior management level in law enforcement has absolutely nothing to do with knowledge, skill, and ability.
Absolutely.
It has nothing to do with it.
Absolutely.
Which is the reason why we have the problems that we have today. You get one person, unqualified, inexperienced, in a position to have the level of influence. What are they going to do? They're going to naturally bring other people who are unqualified, inexperienced, and then you're going to have a level of dysfunction that we see today in public safety.
That's certainly something for us to think about. I'm immediately reminded, we obviously see what's going on in the White House right now with our president and the issues about nepotism. I don't have a problem with nepotism. My producer for this show is Shar, my sister. But I actually came to Maryland partially due to nepotism. My brother and his wife Zalima, they own a small government contracting company where they had contracts at NSA and DIA, and looking for a change from my past career working as a peace officer with the juvenile courts back in California. Again, looking for something different, something that wasn't as stressful. Little did I know this job was also going to be stressful. But I told them, hey, I'm looking for something to do, and they said, why don't you come and help our small business out? And I said, well, I don't know anything about IT. I don't know anything about, this side of the corporate world. I don't know anything about HR. So I'm not sure how much help I can be to you for you to hire your sister right off the street. And they said, that's fine. We will put you in grad school under human resources so that you can learn how to help in our business and how to help operate and assist our employees in our recruiting processes and things of that nature. So again, having nepotism exist is not that bad as long as you know that whoever you're bringing on, they have those skills.
Absolutely.
They have that knowledge, or at least they're picking it up and they're on a path to do so.
Absolutely.
And the same holds true similarly. This is my friend. I'm going to hire you because you're my friend. But while you're being hired, don't forget you're going to take these classes. You're going to get this certification. Right. You're going to get this body of knowledge to make sure that you are equipped and well-trained to move forward and support me.
Absolutely. So. Otherwise, people are going to suffer below. That's an interesting perspective on nepotism. That makes a lot of sense, I think, and you can always tell ineffective leaders Because one thing you can rest assured, I'm not going to hire anybody that ain't qualified, not in law enforcement.
Well, ineffective leaders hire ineffective people.
Absolutely.
So they surround themselves.
See, in law enforcement, you can't play those games. People's lives, and that's why we're losing a lot of lives. That's why we're having some of the trouble that we're having today when you have ineffective, unqualified people at the top making decisions. I remember it, and I saw the transition toward the end of my law enforcement career. And I remember when we were moving into this militarization style law enforcement. And I started asking questions. Wait a minute, what do we need? Why are we bringing AR-15s? I'm a Marine. That's a war gun. There's nothing that law enforcement people are going to be doing that requires a war gun. Then we bring in tanks. I said, Lord. And then so the person at the top who agrees to this, because he or she don't know, all they're doing is being fed information from other people that don't know, and they just, oh yeah, that sounds good. Let's get AR-15s. Let's go spend up the money. And I saw that transition. But it all starts with having someone at the top who has no experience. And so they're forced to have to listen to other people who sometimes figure out that they have no experience, and they really exploit them.
I think something that you touched on, I'd like for you to talk about that next. Prince George's County, and I think it's important that you were wise enough to share with us the roles and responsibility of the sheriff versus the police department, because a lot of people aren't aware that those are not only two different entities, but that they serve two different purposes. Again, I know back home when I was growing up, the sheriff was the police entity for the county where I lived in Sacramento, and the police regulated everything in the city.
Right.
And so, of course, moving forward, looking at the dynamics of what's going on in Prince George's County, our county has the highest number of domestic violence cases, domestic violence related injuries and deaths in the area. Can you tell us some strategies, or, of course, without giving away too much, what is it that you and your team are thinking about, ways to start combating that, ways to start connecting with other entities, businesses, organizations, or whatever needs to be done to make sure that we're redirecting some of that?
Yeah, I think, like you said, I don't want to give away too much and steal my ideas. Not just
no, absolutely, because they might be watching.
Oh no, I know. Oh, trust me.
Watching.
Look, I had an FOP endorsement interview the other day, and come to find out, well, not that I didn't know. Folks are trolling my social media. So for all those who are trolling,
that's called research.
Oh, you're stalking. Oh, yeah, that's right. Opposition research.
Opposition
research. I'm thankful that I'm at least afforded the opportunity to be under
to assist in their opposition.
Absolutely. Domestic violence from a sheriff's department perspective, I think it all ties into community policing. I think the sheriff's department has to take a more innovative approach to its operations. And one of the things that the sheriff has to do, or the sheriff's department has to do, is get more involved in the community, get more involved in domestic violence initiatives and programs and organizations, because this is what they do in functional communities, because they take a proactive. Right now, we're just reactive. Everybody's reactive.
Because I don't want to just see you when you're handing me the warrant that they allege that this happened, or you found out this or that. So.
But if you're in the community and you have officers or sheriffs or deputy sheriffs who care about the community. See, my goal is to help identify those people who care. Like myself, I care. When I was in law enforcement, I've never shot anyone. I've never abused anyone. I've arrested some of the most dangerous people you can imagine. Not one of them, if they walk in here today, they'll give me a hug. And that's because I knew what I was getting into, and I was doing it for the right reasons. Right now, we've got people with these badges and guns, they're in it for the wrong reasons. So if you get people who understand law enforcement from a community policing perspective, and you teach young people, this is how. See, I had somebody teach me. I had the older guy. I never forget the guy told me, he said, David, even if you do the eviction right, the people will thank you. Even if, and I thought out there, my head smit. What do you mean by that? Even if you do the eviction right, they'll thank you. You know why they thank you? They thank you because you treated them professional. You treated them with dignity and respect.
Some respect.
Right. And I've never forget those things. I was taught, about it. And that's what we have to do as teachers. We get out here, we get involved in the community. When people respect the sheriff's department, they see you other than coming to lock up the children, coming for a peace order, domestic violence order, but you're there, you're into community organizations. You're in the community, you're involved, and that will help alleviate. And then you also figure out how can the department support realistically support some initiatives, because we've got to start getting innovative in our thinking.
Absolutely.
It's time to bring the sheriff's department into the 21st century. I say right now we need all hands on deck. We can't have elected people that hide for 4 years and only pop out when it's election time. We got to have elected officials. I don't care if it's our sheriff, our state's attorney, our county exec, our delegates, senators. Everybody's got to get involved if you care about the community.
Except, look, other than just your fundraisers, can you invite us to something other than your fundraiser?
Other than your fundraiser.
You know, oh, and by the way, I mean, I think that I need to do a little bit more research, because the area that I live in, I haven't seen any of my local folks anywhere. And I'm like, well, maybe I need to, you know, broaden the people that I'm friends with on social media, because I don't know what's going on in my area. And I'm kind enough to not say what area I live in.
I was going to ask publicly.
I'll tell you off camera. But it's really distraught when you don't see these people playing a part in these community programs.
Right.
You know, and I joke about this all the time. You know, our other good friend, look, of all the Davids in my life, you know, David Smith, I mean, he's everywhere. And so I'm like, you know, one day I got to see, you know, what office he's running to, because he is a supportive of everything that's going on.
He is.
You are supportive of everything that's going on. And this was before you picked up this candidacy for sheriff.
Long before.
Long before. So we need people to get involved, and not just any people. We need people that support and work in the law enforcement community, because, as you know, it's that still, you know, look, from way back in the 90s, F the police, you know, they don't want to see them. That's, you know, like, oh, I don't care if it's the sheriff, it's the police, anybody with a badge and a gun, I don't want to see them, I don't want to get involved. And so we really do have to get back to that community policing and letting people know, hey, I see you, I drove past you today, how you doing, how your mom doing? You know, hey, I saw you, did you make it to school, you late, you know, do we need to get you a ride to school, you know, call a social worker or something like that. So it's all about being involved and supporting your community. And circling back on that domestic violence issue, is it possible that if you were elected sheriff, are there other agencies that you guys can do interagency programs, or hopefully devise something so that everybody's on the same page, that if you're doing this, the county executive is aware of this, or the state delegate or the local delegates, that you guys can have a united front saying these are some of the issues that we're going to tackle? Because domestic violence, and a lot of people aren't aware that domestic violence isn't just men versus women. Domestic violence encompasses, you know, two dad and a son get into an argument, a sister and a sister get into an argument, or altercation, or something like that. It's the breakdown of relationships. Domestic violence is a breakdown of relationships. And so it's important for everything that I do that we talk about how to better manage relationships. Absolutely. And I think that it's important, and I do know, and I'm going to let you answer this a little bit later, but we need to see if there are innovative ways to start managing some of these programs, to start bringing other people on to help us better manage these relationships.
You know, I will say something that came to mind. Yesterday I was out there on the street working like I do over by Highland Church, and I was moving and putting up a sign.
First Baptist?
Yes, First Baptist. I was putting up a sign
Pastor
over
Davis.
there. I put up signs every day, 24/7. It's wee hours a night. And you know, this officer came by. He was in a plain car. And it looked strange, because I should have been parked somewhere else, but I was sort of holding up traffic. I wasn't expecting that kind of traffic at the time of night. And the officer just came by. He looked out, and he said, "Are you okay? You need help?" I said, "Man," I was completely blown away. I said, "Nah, bro." I said, "I'm good. I'm just grabbing it, putting that sign up, you know." But that's community policing.
Absolutely.
You know, that's real. That touched me, because I was blown away. That's community policing. What now? Going back to your original question, our elected officials have to be people who understand relationships, like you said, but relationships with the other elected officials.
Absolutely.
The sheriff and the state's attorney have to be on the same page. They have to have a relationship. They have to work together. Then they have to work with whoever the county executive is. Mm-hmm. And all of us have to work with our county council, our city council. This is what happens in functional communities.
Absolutely.
That's how they become functional, because that's a family in itself. Mm-hmm. The elected officials. You can't have people who they're caught up in their ego, so they're over here and they just got this big elected job and they don't know what's going on over here. No. in the 21st century, as we move and we start getting more into our innovative thinking, we do need to have a round table. Maybe that's something that I can start. Well, I have a Grogan's Coffee Club.
Grogan's Coffee Clatch.
Coffee Clatch. Because I was going to do that when I ran for state senate. One of the things I said that as a state senator, I was going to have a monthly meeting with every Coach's Coffee Club. Because I want to talk to these coaches. Coaches have these kids' ears. That's where all the kids, they respect these coaches, but the coaches have no idea about the other stuff. They just know sports. And so we've got to educate our coaches. We got to educate our clergy. We got to bring everybody together, especially with the coaches. But on our level, at the elected official level, going back to your question, it is very important that we all come to the table and we all talk about what programs that we should have a vested interest in. Let's find out
Take some suggestions.
Take some suggestions. Let's figure out what programs are working. Because, I mean, obviously, I always tell people, if there's a disaster, there's 2 or 3 different kind of people. There's people who are going to see a disaster and see it as an opportunity. There's people like you and I. If we see a disaster, we signing up for Red Cross. We're going to go work. We're going to shovel snow, water. We're going to do all of that. But then there's another type of person who's going to see business. I need to start a nonprofit. How do I make money off of it? So it's a difference. So you got to have somebody. Again, this is where perspective is derived from experience. You got to be able to identify who's trying to make money, who's trying to capitalize off of this domestic violence or whatever the hot issue is, bullying. Because there's 50% of the people, they're figuring out how we make money.
Chasing an ambulance.
Right. So that's a part of the experience, but it has to happen with innovative, progressive, brilliant minds coming together these days.
I think it's also important to note here that as we're working with each other, looking at our skills and abilities, aside from what our core capabilities might be, it's important to note that you don't have to like them.
Right.
You don't have to like your state's attorney.
You don't.
You don't have to like your sheriff. But you need to be of that open mindset to understand that you have to work with them.
Right.
I'm always amazed when I hear people say, oh, I don't like her, I don't like her, I don't like them. You know, you go to church with them, you go to work with them. You don't have to like them, but I know you're showing up to work. I know you don't like these people, but I know you should be in church. You know, so we have this dual perspective. I don't want to work with them because I don't like them. Okay, but it's hindering your progress. It's hindering the progress from your community, and ultimately it's hindering the progress from your kids. Because we fail to understand that you still need to work with the people that are in positions of power that can make and affect change in our communities.
That speaks to education, and I don't want to sound pessimistic or anything like that. I'm not sure that you can change the mindsets of adults, but I am.
Didn't
sure.
Jesus say that? My people perish from lack of knowledge.
Absolutely.
I think Jesus said that.
I do believe that you can change, or you can shape, not change, but you can shape the minds of children. One of the challenges that I see as I listen to you speak on this, we have to teach our children emotional intelligence. See, there's a difference between IQ and EQ. EQ is emotional intelligence. See, IQ gets you through school, EQ gets you through life.
Absolutely.
And it's something that we've got to start teaching our children. Teaching them how to manage their emotions, how to manage their thoughts, because we got grown people, like you said, like the young people say, they stay in their feelings. So you can't even have a conversation with these people. Everything
because they mad.
You're mad. What you mad at? Can't we just talk about it?
No, we can't talk about it. I'm just gonna stay mad.
I'm just mad.
Yeah.
This has been a challenge for generations. But now it seems a lot more. I think our young people, we don't know how to manage disappointment. We don't know how to disagree. We can agree to disagree. You know?
Absolutely.
It's okay if you have a different opinion. I don't need you to kill me just because we don't agree, you know. But right now, people are losing their lives just because we don't see eye to eye. And when we look at this president and this presidency, I'm fascinated how the system has figured out to test us. See, they put out all this. The media controls the minds of the masses, right? So now they put out all this stuff. Number 45. So now you walk in the community, you can see most of us that look like me. We all in the same. That's right. We're going to get them. He over there laughing because what they do is they take our minds, use the media, and put us right over here while the rest of the world making money, the entrepreneurs and those wealthy people, they're just making money. Because we get so clouded, we get caught up in our emotions and our feelings, and we can't see the reality. That's why when I look at 45, sometimes I have to laugh because his nature, he's an entertainer, and he likes playing with people. That's what his true passion is. I don't know if he really wants to be the president, but he loves entertaining. Yeah. He loves entertainment. So if he can keep us all riled up, and they done turned the presidency into a reality show. Why? Because that sells. They're going to make money off this stuff. Now they're going to meet with Korea. They're going to build that up. We're going to be sitting home. They're going to think they fight. Then people ain't fighting. They're all friends. North Korea, no, they don't want to mess with the U.S. U.S. will blow up everything.
But at least he brought North Korea and South Korea together.
Yeah.
They working together to talk to us as a collective. So.
Right. We are the most powerful country in the world. Nobody want to fool with us. They know that. But this president will create all this because this is fun for him, and they make money. And it keeps us over here.
That's true. Let me take you back to what you said earlier. Teaching our children emotional intelligence. Yes. While as much as I love teachers and people that work with children, and you guys are a godsend because it's so hard and kids are so hard. So again, we certainly appreciate the work that they do. But it truly starts at home.
It does.
It starts at home, and looking and watching our children watch mom interact with dad.
Yes.
Watch dad interact with grandma. Watch grandma interact with auntie. So we have to be mindful of what we do in front of our children, the things that we say in front of our children, because this is where they learn. They learn to do these things. They learn where they see you arguing with your child's mom, you this, and this, and that. Ooh. They see grandma talking to the mom, or you this, and that, or you did this, or you didn't do this. And that's not to say that person did not fail to act. Right. That's not to say that this person did not commit something or do something wrong. Absolutely. If that thing probably happened, if it occurred, it occurred. But it's how you deal with it and what you present to the child.
Life is 10% what happened to you, and 90%
how you react.
Right, how you react.
Exactly.
And I think you raise a good point. I think, again, we got to get back to some of the basics, and we got to be okay with understanding that there's no manual to parenting. And
but there are thousands of books.
There are thousands
of books.
And you have to want to do different. And so, like you said, the emotional intelligence is something that now we have generations of people who needed it, because domestic violence is learned behavior.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this just is not spontaneous. Children, the people are taught that.
Learning how to remain dysfunctional.
Learning how to remain dysfunctional. Yeah, because if your kids learn by what they see. So if every time you upset, you can call people out of their names, and words have power. Words have power, and kids learn by what they see. One of the things with raising my daughter, and again, seeing how young ladies and girls do, and emotions and different things like that, I was very cognizant of, I wanted to teach her emotional management. The only way I can teach her in emotional management by how I act.
Absolutely.
I know she's watching everything I do. So for 19 years, I had to stay like this. When she was a little, boy, she was wild, and man, my little thing, boy, she was turned up. By the time I would take her home on the weekend, I'd go home, go right to bed, because I'd be so worn out. But I would take a deep breath, go in the room, come back out, and feel like get back in the game, get back in the calm game. Yeah, got in the calm. See, I didn't realize till I was an adult. See, my mom was calm. See, I'm very intense. I'm an inside linebacker Marine, so I'm very intense. I'm just intense, but I'm calm. I have a calm demeanor, because my mom was calm. My mom was one of those kind of people, even with school. David, you got all the F's.
Let's talk about
it. And all I would say is, Mom, I did the best I could. She would say, son, did you do the best you could? I'd say, yes, Mom, I did the best I could. Okay, this is conversation over with. Let's move on. She wasn't gonna go upside my head and beat me and take the toys.
Don't talk about my mama like that. My mama, love you, Mom. My mama was like that.
Yo, you ain't doing right. I'm gonna beat you until you gonna get it right.
We had all that. But going back into the interaction between the two parents. I'm divorced, and when I would have conversations with my ex-husband or my stepwife, we argued and disagreed about a whole lot of stuff. But when the kids would find me on the phone, well, why are you doing this? Well, you shouldn't be doing this. That ain't your business, not your place. I don't agree with this. Right. The kids walk in the room, hold on. Okay, yeah, we're going to work that out.
Wow.
Yeah, okay, well, let's talk about that. Yeah, we'll follow through on that. Again, the kids should be able to see that you're working through things. They shouldn't see that yelling and that arguing. You can still be mad. Right. You know, you can still be upset. But it's teaching kids that I'm upset, but we're still going to work this out. Right. Dad says that you need to be home at this time. Right. While I would like for you to stay later, we're going to respect Dad's wishes, and we're going to, go on and do this. And maybe when we talk about it, we can adjust it another time. Yeah. And as we're taking the kids home, oh, well, Mommy, I'm like, no, Dad is great, and Dad's going to pick this up, and we'll work through this. And as soon as I drop them off, close the door, Dad,
I'd say.
So again,
where did you learn that from? Now, that's interesting. How did you get
lots of books.
Oh, you did read.
Lots of books.
What about the people that can't read? I mean, how do they? Because we got to figure. I guess what I'm trying to get at. We have to get to the point where we're.
If you can talk, you can ask. And one of the greatest disadvantages that our people do, and I say our people that look like me, people that look like you, is that we tend to ask for help, but we ask the wrong people.
Correct.
If you don't work on cars, I shouldn't be asking you how to fix my car.
True that.
Okay. If you ain't never been to college, I shouldn't be asking you how to fill out a college application.
You ain't never managed a campaign. I shouldn't be asking you for campaign advice.
Exactly. And so it's a matter of making sure that we connect and find a good source of information. And that goes back to the facts. Just because somebody tell you something, oh, yeah, I did this. Well, okay, well, let me know what you did. Right. Look, I want to see the proof. I want to see the background. So it's finding that information out. And again, a few other things that, put me into that perspective. But it's a matter of letting my kids see, and as we should for all of our children, letting them see that you can come back to here. You can come back to sanity, because kids need to be kids. Kids don't need to know that you're angry all the time and that you didn't get your child support, so the rent is going to be late. Right. Kids shouldn't know that you only got $20, so tomorrow they're going to have leftovers, or they're going to have for the next 2 days because you're having financial problems. Right. That's not good emotional intelligence, because kids need to be kids. Right. And we need to allow them, all they need to be concerned about is, can they go outside tomorrow? That's right. Can they go play in a sandbox? Can they do things of that nature? But parents need to learn emotional intelligence. There are certain things that I cannot share with my children. There are certain things that I should not put in front of their face, because my concern is for them, and I need to make sure that I'm okay. I'm a big advocate, and I know you are as well, of taking care of our mental health. You have to. Again, because it's not something that we're not born knowing everything, but sometimes we have to realize that we do need some help. We do need to see a therapist, speak to someone at church, speak to someone that's knowledgeable in that area. And before that, I'm going to do the shameless plug. NBC4 has a health and wellness fitness expo this weekend. Are you going to be there?
Negative.
Okay, but look, that's okay. I know you have time, but I'll be working at the National Association of Mental Illness. Really? We're going to have a booth both Saturday and Sunday, and I'll be assisting and manning that booth, because again, I'm a staunch advocate that we need to take care of ourselves
and
first.
Mental health.
Absolutely, regarding mental health. It's that old adage where you're sitting in the airplane. Oh, well, I'm gonna do this for my kids, but I'm gonna need you to take care of you first. Right. And they tell you that on the airplane.
Put that mask on first.
Fix yourself first, and then you can help someone else. And so we need to make sure that we're doing that and continuing those traditions.
So. Essentially what you did, you was teaching domestic peace. Mm-hmm. See, we have to start teaching domestic peace. We're familiar with domestic violence.
Like I said, you ain't gotta like it, but you need to practice it.
But it's something that we got to start having this conversation early with our kids and helping them. I think it's something, again, when you have people, school board, legislators, whatever, who do have real life experiences, they're the ones that can lobby for these things, whether it's mental health, whether it's a type of education. Right now, some of the education I think we need has to deal with emotional intelligence. So kids understand, if you teach early, because I'm not sure you can teach adults. I'm just not sure.
We are teachable.
We
are teachable.
You think so?
Look, we are, again, because God is good. And
God
even
is
if
good.
You don't know, and we can all change. And that's one of the things that we use against each other. He ain't never going to change. She ain't never going to change. God is able to do all things. God is able to do all things. You keep praying, and then you change your attitude, and we'll see how that goes.
But teaching domestic peace, it starts with yourself. You have to be under control. You have to be calm. My daughter had never seen me flip out. Well, she did twice. But the times that she seen me flip out...
2 out of 19 years? That's
good. 2 out of 19 years. The time that she seen me flip out was done on purpose. And intentionally, because I can go in a role play. I'm sort of entertaining myself, so I can go in a role. But one time I got on. Do we have time for the 20-second story?
I'm gonna give you a 20-second story because we're gonna wrap up shortly.
20-second story. Daughter goes to the private school, and a predominantly white school, and so I go during the midst of some turbulent times. I go. The only time I see her at the bus stop. So I go to her bus stop, and get on the bus. The bus driver says, come on. So my little girl sits at the front always. She's always like Rosa Parks. She gets on the bus. Ever since she was small, she get on the bus. Only chocolate what it did, but she sit right at the front. So I go, sit there, talk with her. We have a good conversation. So the driver has some kind of epiphany. He jumps up, screams at me, "Get off this bus! You ain't supposed to be on the bus." I said, "Wait a minute." I said, "I just walked by you. You got to get off this bus." Now he's screaming at me from this child. So sometimes I do believe you got to meet people where they are. Michelle Obama said they go low, you go high. Sometimes you got to meet them where they are. So this was an instance where I had to meet him where he was. He was acting a fool in front of these kids, and I had to let him know. My daughter was so proud. I had to let him know that if necessary, I would lock your behind up and take these kids to school and drive
myself.
But she said, that little girl, she said, "That's my daddy," But I got only probably 2 or 3 times, and that was more intentional, and purposeful, because I could have stayed calm if I wanted to. But I chose to just, this is. And then I found out this guy's a former chief of police down there in Eastern Maryland, because when the head of school found out about it, the head of school, was trying to calm it down. They're paying a lot of money to go to school. They don't want to upset us now.
Right.
So he says, "I'm really surprised. He's a retired chief of police down here." I said, "That's even a bigger problem. He's the chief of police in this town."
Oh, wow.
So he had some kind
of... Any moonlighting as a bus driver?
Yeah, right.
I want to say thank you so much for coming out and talking to us about your campaign.
Absolutely.
And, of course, your contributions to society. Do you have a website or some information where people can find you, or they can find you over this weekend?
Yeah, you can find me this weekend. I'm easy to find. And Dave Grogan for Sheriff. DaveGroganForSheriff.com. And I always say, you're welcome to call me if you need be. Some people like to call. I'm at 301-651-9178. But if you want to find me online, DaveGroganForSheriff.com. We got a nice event. We're coming down to South County to Accokeek this weekend.
Oh, awesome.
We're coming. We're waving. We got a nice wave. We got a wave party Saturday. You gonna come on? Yes, right. You're gonna be tied up Saturday.
I'll be tied up Saturday, but I will be joining you this evening on behalf of the David Valentine and the Fatherhood Forum for the Daddy-Daughter Dance this evening. That's going to be held at Largo High School.
Largo High School, that's right. I'll be there.
Very proud of the work that Curtis and his team is doing, so we're very happy to be able to support them. And I look forward to seeing you there tonight on behalf of the Collaborative.
Thanks for reminding me.
So again, we want to absolutely. We want to thank everyone for tuning in for this week's edition of Shaynel's 3 Cents. And just want to also remind you, for those of you that did tune in, VoxWave, we do have a streaming radio player on our website. Go to the front page. All the local artists can also get their music played on here 24/7. If you have an Android, the app is also available in the Google Play Store. And if you're a business owner and you're looking to advertise your business or your products, definitely get in touch with us in VoxWave. Reach out to Reggie Gaskins at 240-832-4455. So again, we appreciate you tuning in for this week's episode. We want to thank you for all that you've done. Make sure that you continue to follow us on Facebook. Follow our website, www.obf4u.org. Take a look and see what we're up to in the community. And as always, we appreciate you for tuning in. You may not like what we said, but at least you heard it. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week.
That's what I'm talking about.